Hello, everyone. Philip Lee returning with another episode of Civil War Chat. Today is the 2nd of July, 2022. Click on the subscribe button below here on the lower right to subscribe to this video channel, and also the notification bell in the far upper right to be notified when new episodes are released. Today's episode is What Lee Really Said. In recent articles, I've contrasted how Robert E. Lee took responsibility for his failure at Gettysburg, as well as elsewhere, and contrasted that with the evasion of accountability by President Joe Biden, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, and General Mark Milley of the Joint Chiefs of Staff for their failure to accept blame for the Afghanistan debacle. Instead of focusing on a witch hunt to uproot nearly non-existent racism in the military, they should have focused more on competently executing the Afghan withdrawal. After the failure was as obvious as the evacuees falling from an overloaded aircraft ascending into the sky, we all saw that on TV. But anyway, Biden, Austin, and Milley had the utter audacity to label that withdrawal as a brilliant success. In truth, the obvious fiasco may have been enough to convince Russia President Vladimir Putin that America has become a paper tiger under the leadership of Biden, Austin, and Milley, and thereby was encouraged to invade Ukraine. If so, we can thank Biden, Austin, and Milley for $5 a gallon gasoline, negative economic growth, historic inflation, and possibly an impending depression. Not recession, a possible impending depression. This mess they made is a good argument for restoring honor to Robert E. Lee because he took duty seriously. There probably isn't a better example in our history, certainly during the Civil War era. He even blamed himself aloud in the presence of soldiers of every rank returning from Pickett's failed charge at Gettysburg that concluded the battle as a Confederate defeat. Those wanting to retain memorials to Lee should not sacrifice his record as a Confederate general to political correctness. His leadership qualities put those of Austin, Milley, and especially Biden to shame, everlasting shame. Consider the following direct quotes from eyewitnesses concerning Lee's behavior after Pickett's failed charge. And this is on the battlefield as Pickett's men are returning to the Confederate lines after their repulse. Quote, "A great many of Pickett's fugitives passed by us, and General Lee spoke to nearly all, telling them, 'We want all good men to hold together now.' He also used the expression, 'It was all my fault this time.'" Close quote. That's from Colonel Edward Porter Alexander. Here's another quote. General Lee alone on Traveler rode up and said, "This has been my fight, and upon my shoulders rests the blame," close quote. And that is written by Captain Robert A. Bright, who was on the staff of Major General George Pickett. Another one of the remarks made to General Pickett by General Lee, we distinctly heard him say, quote, "General Pickett, your men have done all that men could do. The fault is entirely my own," close quote. And that is from 4th Corporal Charles T. Lower, Company D, 1st Virginia Regiment. On the brow of the ridge, and this is another quote, "On the brow of the ridge was a solitary horseman, whom on nearer approach I discovered to be Lee. He asked, quote, 'Are you wounded?' 'No, General, not hurt, but completely exhausted.' 'Ah, yes,' he said, 'it was too much for us. It was my fault,' close quote. And that's from Private, that's that's a quote, that's Private Robert A. Shotwell of Company H, 8th Virginia Regiment, quoting his exchange with Robert E. Lee on the field of battle. When we got back to our artillery, we met General Lee, who said, "Colonel, rally your men and protect the artillery. The fault is mine." Whether these were his exact words, I cannot say, but I can say they were substantially his words. And that's a quote from Lieutenant Colonel Samuel T. Shepard, 7th Tennessee Regiment. Another guy says, "I was standing within a few feet of Shepard and Lee and remember Lee using the words, 'The fault is mine,' at least twice." That's from Second Lieutenant John H. Moore, Company B as in boy, 7th Tennessee Regiment. I saw General Wilcox come up to Lee and, almost crying, explain the state of his brigade. General Lee immediately shook hands with him and said cheerfully, "Never mind, General, all this has been my fault. It is I that have lost this fight, and you must help me out of it in the best way you can," close quote. That observation was made by Lieutenant Colonel Arthur J.L. Fremantle, who was an observer from Her Majesty's Coldstream Guards from Britain. All of the preceding quotes were on the very day of Pickett's charge and on the Gettysburg battlefield. A month later, Lee officially took blame for the defeat in a letter to President Jefferson Davis and offered to resign as commander of the Army of Northern Virginia. In a replying letter declining the resignation, Davis explained that he believed it would be impossible for him to replace Lee with a better commander. In sum, there was no commander on either side of the Civil War more beloved by his troops than was Lee. They did not love him because he was once a slaveholder. Their devotion was due to his leadership, which involved sharing their hardships and putting himself in harm's way when required, as was the case when Yankee artillery exploded on the very field where he rallied the soldiers returning from Pickett's charge. Okay, for those of you that would like to get a good war story, I recommend The Confederacy at Flood Tide by Philip Lee. This covers the period from June of '62 to December of '62, when I believe the South was closest to winning its independence. It covers not only the military affairs, but it covers espionage, it covers politics, and it covers diplomacy. It's not only just what happened in the Eastern theater, but it covers what happened in the Eastern, Western, and even in the Trans-Mississippi theaters. There were important things going on in all of those. That's why I call it a flood tide, not a high tide, because all of those things were happening simultaneously. Okay, if you'd like to get a copy of that, I think it's $26 at Amazon. If you want an autographed copy, $30 from me. Just email me, Phil, PHIL_Lee, LEIGH @me.com. All right, that's our show for today, and thanks for watching.